What is going on, everybody? Happy first Thursday of July, and the beginning of third quarter in the calendar year 2022. What's going on? I'm Lawrence Henderson from Boss LLC, and also a part of this amazing C3 community. What is going on, Karen?
What's going on? I don't know. This summer is different.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's different, but and yeah, it's just different.
yep.
And I can't believe it's July. We say this every month, but it's after July, and it's like later in July because it's the 7th. It's 7/7. Everybody.
Yeah.
Um, they say, what do they call that? The Lions Gate or something? Don't they call that something? I don't know, but
Yeah.
maybe like every month we'll create some great conversation here that will lead to some change and a better world. That's what we're all here for. And we're here with my very good friend Christopher Waters, who's coming to talk about inner journeys. Um, and that's really how it feels this month, like this summer. It's like the journey is clear. It's not there's no destination. You know what I mean? There's an ever evolving journey. So I have been witness thankfully to Christopher's journey for the past over over 10 years, 12, I don't know. It's been a while.
Yes,
Um,
you're. I think our first time we talked, I think your oldest was still a baby because I heard her in the background, and I asked her like, "Is that a baby?" Like, what's her name? I heard a baby in the background. That's how long it was. Your oldest was still
yeah,
was still a baby crying.
and she's 12 now. So
Yes.
that is how long it's been. But I'm really glad to have my friend Christopher Waters here to talk about inner journey. Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about because not only did you want to speak on this, but you also voted for it as a topic in C3. If you're new to C3, that's what we do. We find out we have a great long list of excellent topics we could cover any month. We find out what's important to our community and we gather some panelists. Amy Blakeslee was going to be here. She won't be here. We might have somebody pop in her place, which would be great. But otherwise, we're just going to have this great conversation about inner journeys, which we all have. Everybody has an inner journey, whether we are navigating that inner journey or letting someone or something navigate that inner journey for us. It's we're still all on these inner journeys. So, Chris, why don't you talk about this topic and why this was something you wanted to come talk about today?
I think for me, I always say, um, I think most. I mean, I'm a psychology undergrad, so I'm a little bit different when it comes to these type of things. So I look at a different approach, and I think most motivations are intrinsic. I think what you do, it comes out in different ways, but who you are, what you do also shows who you are. Whether you are a caregiver, you're a social worker, but you can be an accountant and be a caregiver as well. So there's different ways and way you express these things. I made a joke the other day saying, when I was younger, I was a bill collector. I used to call people and collect money. And my friend said, "You don't seem like a bill collector." But I said, "Yes." But I said the way I would do it was more of a social worker type of mentality. They're like, "I'm here
Mm,
to help you. You're going through a situation. I'm here to help you. How can I help? I'm not here to like, I want your money. Give it to me. You owe me money." I came from the idea of like, you're in the middle of a situation. I'm calling you. I need to talk to you about this situation. How can we come to a situation, a mutual beneficial situation where we're both getting something, but you're getting out of the trouble that you're in, and you're moving forward from this point.
that's
And
perfect.
my friends like, how does that work? I'm like, I was a number three collector out of a 20 unit group because, and it's like, how would you like? I said, because I said my approach was that way so much that when people talk to me, they knew I cared about them. They knew I wasn't demanding. I called them because they owed me money. But they knew there was something else behind that, and they understood that.
Yeah.
So I think for me, inner journeys is a more philosophical way of looking at leadership development and looking at team development and looking at career, at professional and personal development. And I think when you start looking at it from that sense, um, the information we gather, the trainings we go to, the way we reflect, and the way we move forward changes a lot. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot more depth behind it. It's
Mm-hmm.
no longer a reaction to, I need to go out of a job and get money. It's more about who am I and what do I want to be, what type of person I want to develop into, and what type of change do I want to see, and how can I affect something greater than myself. And it changes the way we look at things. It becomes more philosophical. And I think that is for me, that's why I chose a chopstick, because I think a lot of times, especially in, I teach business management, I teach human resource management, I teach social impact. But I said it's all one thing. You're talking about, how can you make a change someplace, and how can you grow from that, and what experience do you need to get from that, and information do you need to grow from that, to grow into that person you want to be. So that's why I chose this topic, and that's why I'm interested. Also, that's why I'm always interested in something like this.
Excellent. That's great points. So for me, I look at the different realms of our lives, right? There's the financial realm you just touched on. There's a leadership realm. There's a career realm. There's a family realm. There's our passions and interests and hobbies. There's our friends, our social life. There's our community that we live in. All these different facets. And you're talking about like different trainings, like things you're exposing yourself to. A lot of thoughts come up around that. Number one, have I have invested in so many of these programs that help guide the inner journey. So many things that have definitely leveled me up in various ways. And nothing that delivered on any kind of promise that at the end of this, your life will be perfect and happy, right? That's not how it's going to be. But the more you expose yourselves to these things, then the more you will gain self-awareness, which we talk about every single time, right? Find out what are the gaps. Why are these areas of my life not where I'd like them to be? And then give us insight as to what our next training, education, coach, should be able to offer us. And at the same time, I know that there are people watching this right now. And if you are watching, by the way, jump in, ask questions, challenge us, right? I mean, I know there are people who have to work 12 to 20-hour days. They come home and then they take care of families, and it seems like a luxury they can't afford sometimes to be able to reflect, to be able to stop. And that was something when we started this in 2020, we were like, we wanted to capture everybody in that moment because that's what they're doing. Their regular life was interrupted. They suddenly could afford this time. It was forced upon them to sit and reflect on their lives and their next training, their next education, their next phase of their life, what they wanted to look like. Their priorities changed. Have we shifted back to a time when we can no longer afford that time has escaped us? And when I say us, I mean the people who the world needs right now to be out there being their highest selves, doing the greatest thing possible they can with their time and their resources and their energy. And if so, how do we make that inner journey accessible to more people in a state of reality that they're in, if they are back in their over full-time corporate jobs?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's funny, Karen, particularly that part. I think we've had this conversation before. We talk about these inner journeys, but and I love the use of language. Right, I've been digging into Brene Brown's newest book, Atlas of the Heart, and really how do we use language and in the way as you were explaining it, Chris. It was really what does it mean to sign yourself up for a journey, and for our right now society, I really believe that nobody's signing themselves up for a process anymore. Like, let me go get a certificate, let me go get a training, let me go get a tool, and this immediate gratification. I'm in the thing, I get the thing, and I move forward. And I think for us as practitioners of being conscious leaders, of how do we equip people to create pause in their life to reflect on what's going on with them, is to really break that down of understanding that this stuff starts from the inside out, right? And giving them back that autonomy to lead themselves well, but then also define what that even means. And I think for a lot of people, they've lost that sense of self. And again, I think that's the kind of the catalyst of the great resignation, is people wanting to take ownership back of my life and how I'm processing what's happening to me. And I think, but now those people took those steps without the tools. And I think so now it's time to mirror them up of what does it look like to operationally put these tools into practice? What does it mean to understand? And one of the assessments that I'm a practitioner of, the Energy Leadership Index assessment, is saying, okay, how do I show up when things are optimal, when they're normal? Then how do I show up when stress is introduced? And some people just are not conscious to what's happening with them when those stress blinders are on, when I'm angry about something or I'm agitated. And I think for me, that inner journey, it doesn't stop. It's a continuous journey as you evolve. And I think that's the part we've gotten so used to there being a beginning and an ending. And so, but we're constantly evolving. I get another gray hair every time I shave or I think about something that stresses me out. I see it literally growing real time. My hair changing color in my face. And so for us, like Chris, how do you help somebody navigate and come to grips with Joker, this journey doesn't stop?
So I think for me, I always told people always come to me. So I had a friend maybe about 10 years ago, come to me and he said, and he was talking about his life and he said, I'm here, I'm there, I'm doing this. This is not working out. That's not working out. And for 15, I said, all right, for the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk about this. We're going to focus on where you are, where you want to be, what you want, what you don't want. And I said, I don't want answers that they tell you you're supposed to say. I want answers that you are going to give me, that is from you. So I was, and I say that because I always say when I go to a recent graduation, alumni event, and I talked to someone who just came out of college, and I said, what do you want to be? I want to get a job in a company and work my way up from the bottom, and get and then become leader. And I said, that's not what you want. That's what they told you to say. What do you want? What do you want to be? What are your dreams? What do you want to accomplish? And one person actually said, I want to be a teacher. And I said, really? He said, for the last 3 years, I've been teaching inside of West Philly High School as an assistant. That's what I've been doing. And I really enjoy the students. I really enjoy the interaction. I really, and I think I'm making a change in the world. And I said, why don't you join Teach for America? I said, I have someone, and I said, I know 3 or 4 alumni. I get you in contact with them. They can tell you about the process. They can tell you about what what it's like. I said, in 2 years, you'll be a certified teacher. And I said, you probably get placed. I said, West Philadelphia is a high Teach for America zone. I said, you won't have to change your life. You won't have to do anything. And in 2 years, you can be, with a good salary, you can be a professional teacher. And he said, no. And I looked at him and I said, huh? And he said, no, I just want a job where, I want a job where I, work my way up from the bottom and become a management and leader. I'm like, that's what they told you to say. I'm trying to get you past the programming. I'm trying to get you to that next step. But he automatically defaulted when I give him the opportunity to give exactly what he wanted to be. He had the experience, he had the background, he knew exactly what the job would entail. And he immediately went back to the programming. And I looked at him and he walked, it's like, I was like, oh, well, reach, here's my card. You want this information, reach out to me. And I think that's what it's about sometimes. I think the default setting that we have been trained to say since we were 5 or 6 has been always to say, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And someone comes along and is like, no, this is what everyone else is doing. You have to do what everyone else is doing. And after a while you go, okay. And I think after a while, it becomes so ingrained with us to do what everyone else is doing that you don't think about, what do I want? And what is my real answer? And what is my real focus? And I think that's where the confusion, as you alluded to, starts happening. Is because people are telling you to say and what you want to say, all of a sudden start fighting, and what people are telling you to say, you never find that safe space to say what you want to be. You never find that safe space to say what you want to, where you want to be, and where you want to move forward, and where your life journey continues to, that might get you to a different position or a different area or a different growth. You stay in what you're supposed. You stay in that nice little round hole that you're supposed to be put in, and I think that's what happens um, in those inner journals, in inner journey conversations, and it becomes a problem because I think that's where the cognitive dissonance becomes, where the two sides starts fighting, and one never actually wins and one never actually loses, and through your entire life, the two just starts. There's a war going on or a fight going on, and it never seems to end. In even as you get older and you start becoming what you want to be, there is that idea where it's kind of like when it gets hard and you stress, difficulty, all of a sudden, like, you know what? I should just quit this and just do something else. Like, and it's like, well, this is what you want to do. It's like, yeah, but it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Everyone else seems to be happy doing what they're being told. I kind of sometimes just want to do what I'm told. It seems so easier. It seems so much more relaxing just to do that. I kind of want to do that for a bit. And I think that it is becoming a problem. And that's why you see in the Great Resignation, because the two sides are, people have, like you said, Karen, people have time to sit around for the last year during COVID and just think there. And it's kind of like, do I really want to go back to this office? No. Do I really want to deal with this boss? No. Do I really want to do this? No.
But do they know what they want to do? Is a good question, right? I've talked to a lot of people. Say no. Yeah. You know, a couple things struck me because as we started out saying, my daughter is now 12, right? She's at that age where she wants to be her own person. And anything that I try to give her in terms of advice is automatically rejected. And this is the beginning of those years where, you know, she is going to fight even harder to try to find her way. And even if my advice is, you know, life-saving advice, you know, she's going to do the opposite, which is really scary territory to be for a mom. You know, I don't have any intention of steering her in any one direction in terms of where she applies her talent and her career. I hope she's interested in a lot of things. I hope she pursues them all. But this is the start of her inner journey. So that just hit me. It's a very poignant point. And then I think of a few clients, one in particular who I worked with in helping him. He wanted to achieve this dream. He wanted to work for one of the most admired companies. I said, I can help you do that. So we put a plan together, and then further in, getting to know him better, building greater rapport, having him trust me, and to reveal some things, even that were happening for him medically. It was that struggle. It was an emotional and mental struggle that he was having between this path, that was his dream, but was conflicting with really what he felt was more authentic to him. And what came out of our work together was the fact that this dream was not really authentic to him. It was something he was doing to make his late father proud. That's why he was pursuing this dream. It wasn't even his dream. It was just something he felt compelled to do. And it was causing physical pain, physical symptoms, physical illness. Like, it was almost as if his body was like, this isn't the direction you really want to go in. And, you know, he wound up just giving up that dream, which was still, he had to mourn that dream and go through that emotional process. And then he did find a path that was much more authentic to him. But like, that's when it's like the hero's journey. You know what happens in a plot where this hero is supposed to step up and be the hero. So as long as that hero doesn't answer the call to adventure, as long as that hero continues to deny what their true destiny is, then things go wrong, things go awry, until that hero finally steps up, and then suddenly everything conspires to help this hero, you know, get to where achieve their destiny. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and both of you are really hitting on some things there, and particularly Karen, when you there's this there's almost this identification of the path that I'm traveling, and do I understand the why behind it? Because if I can't connect to the greater why of it all, will I stay on the path?
Yeah.
Right. And again, and having a client and the fact that the client identified they needed to do some work, but then along the way identifying that this wasn't the right work for me. And the word that keeps coming up for me, whether it's with students or with clients, is this: how do we operationalize authenticity in this inner journey, right? And what does authenticity look like in practice? And what I'm kind of to find out, people just don't know because they've never given themselves permission to practice authenticity
Yeah.
in breadth and depth of it. And now that people are coming face to face with giving themselves permission to practice truth, there's something neuroplasticity, right? It's recreating these new paths and giving yourself these new options, but then giving yourself the permission to practice this new way. I think that's where people stop short. And I love this graphic of you probably seen it, super old graphic where you got the two people, guy on the bottom, they're digging for diamonds, and he's right there, just one more swing and he'll break through. And I think because we've created this in society so often, like, okay, instant gratification has become like the bane of our existence, because people are like, you know what, I didn't see it tomorrow, so I got to stop. I got to pivot. I got to do something else, right? We've made an art form out of the word pivot. Or you get it on the other side, we've made an art form out of grinding and hustling.
Mhm.
And again, you're like, for what though? Like, what am I grinding and hustling for? And it reminds me of this thing that's been in real time rotation. Anybody I could share it with, I share with Denzel. It was this the movement versus progress, and he said, you could run in place and not go anywhere. He said, so don't mistake movement for progress. And I think for a lot of people, particularly when you talk about the inner journeys of it all, is like, where are you going? And really getting people to spend time there. Just don't, in some of these, particularly depending on how deep the thing is for you, don't just get in the car and drive. Because where are you going?
Mhm.
You just gonna keep driving and run out of gas somewhere?
Mhm.
You have, there's no plan here. And so I think that's why being connected to, a psychiatrist, a coach, somebody that can help you chart this thing out in a meaningful way so that you can create markers for yourself along the way. So, hey, if this is a real pivot or there is a real stopping point that you have to make, then let's make it in a comprehensive and coherent manner versus just, hey, we're going down these emotional roads that have no ending and no direction in and of itself. And so my thing is, like, in this, how can, as you're navigating inner journeys, right? You said 12-year-old, like, how many roads can that 12-year-old travel these days? Like, how do we even practice the road that makes sense for us? Like, that's a question for the crew. Like, how do we even do that?
I think so. I'm going to what my yoga teacher told me. One of my first yoga teacher told me, and I remember I've been doing yoga for almost 20 years now, in some form or fashion, about weekly for 20 years, and it comes from playing sports for so long, and you get the wear and tear, and like you get older, also know your back hurts a little bit more. It hurt yesterday. Your knee hurts a little bit before yesterday, and how do you relieve that? And the one thing that she always said, and this is my first yoga teacher, said, "You're practicing. This is it. Like it's not. You're not doing yoga. You're never going to win yoga." Said you're practicing, and
Mhm.
because you're practicing, said you're going to get better some days, and some days it's going to be a little bit rougher next, and some things, and there's going to be a lot of factors, and some days you're going to feel great about doing it, and sometimes you're going to drag yourself in here, but you know that it's beneficial to your body, so you practice, you keep on practicing. You're never going to get to the point where you win and you stop. It's practice. And I think the questions you asked about, how do you tell how do you tell a 12-year-old, how do you tell a 30-year-old, how do you tell a 50-year-old, and I think you look back and you say you're practicing this, you're practicing I read the book, Robert Greene Mastery, And the entire book, he always talks about, you're practicing your craft. You're getting better, and you're going to get more skills, and you're going to realize that the time that you did this, this is going to actually equal time, actually going to make you better at this thing you're trying to create. And there's no disconnect. And because there's no disconnect, it's all one big bowl of experience that you can draw from to become a better at your respective journey or respective craft. And I think that's what we are. We're all just practicing. We're all practicing at being human. And in the inner journey is about the inner journey that we're walking is drawing from those experiences that we had, over the course of our life, and putting forward to becoming something better, and realizing that it's all connected. And as you said, the brain patterns are changing, but they're all starting to connect. And I think for me, I'm a professor now because I was an elementary school teacher 25 years ago. 20 years ago. I'm sorry, 20 years ago. And I'm a better professor now because I taught elementary school, and having an audience that just didn't care what you're providing that day. If it wasn't fun, we're not doing it. Or we're tired, we're not doing it. Or, you're boring, we're not doing it. And realizing that experience, that 1.5 year experience of being an elementary school teacher, made me a better speaker. And realizing that me talking to him with my hands, which I thought was kind of like that, I need to stop that. And so when I said, no, it draws attention to you. He said, you don't need to do it as much, but it's something that you need to do. It tells me that you're interested and that you want me interested, and you're drawing attention to yourself. And I said, okay, because I did that with my kids when I was an elementary school teacher. I said, talk with my hands, or I would make a signal with my hand to keep them quiet or keep them involved. But that was an experience that I draw on from 20 years ago that I practiced, that now 20 years later, so I actually said, oh no, you may make some movements, but I actually start paying attention to you, because when I know when you start making movements, I know you're getting excited about what you're talking about. And because you're getting excited what you're talking about, I become more interested. And your voice goes up, and your voice starts changing, and your stories come in. So that would make what you're talking about interesting. But that experience is from 20 years ago, but I'm still using it to this day. And I think that's what it's about. I think getting those experiences, especially at 12, at 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, good experience and sometimes bad experiences, what you draw on to make you a better person. And those inner journeys become more fruitful as you get older, because you have gone through struggle and because you have learned something. And as Wynton Marsalis said, he said, my kids used to hate my music when I was younger. He said, there I am winning Grammys. There I am winning Grammys. There I am, touring the world, and my kids hate my music. So now they're in their mid-20s, and all of a sudden, nowhere, they love my music. So they're no longer rejecting it. They actually listen to my music. They listen to the stuff I listen to, and they love it. And I realize they have to go through that. They have to reject it, and they have to get more experiences, and they have to learn to love it again. Because they're listening to me all the time, and I'm forcing them on them. But when they accept it, they start loving it. It's like, oh, Dad, I want this album. I want this album. By the way, I heard you play this. You ought to be doing this next time. And I think that's where it starts for anybody, is the idea of rejection and then back to acceptance again.
Having that freedom. So then back to your point, Chris, about, it's easier just to have somebody else tell you what to do, right? And then also Nasir pointed out that that was a very good point. Like that you have this programming you follow. It's supposed to be a recipe. It's supposed to be a recipe for you having, I don't know, financial stability, like it's supposed to lead you all these places. Now, having been a professional through .com bust, after 9/11, having my career impacted by that, the 2008 fallout, 2020, all these things, like what you realize is that recipe is flawed. It's a flawed recipe. It can be easier to follow that recipe because it does come with some things. But there has to be the fruit, like you're talking about, the payoff. What is the payoff? Because the inner journey is hard. It's confronting. It's, there are going to be great days when you feel like you're on top of your game. You've improved that 1% every day and can look back over time and be like, wow, I really made a lot of progress here. And then there's going to be those days where you're like, wow, how have I not gotten this already? So there has to be that fruit. Let's talk about, and that goes back to the why that Lawrence was talking about. So, I mean, everybody else has their own why, and you have to be able to deconstruct that why. Because if that why was like, well, if I do these things that they told me to do, then I should have the things, I should have the happiness. I should be able to go on that great vacation like everybody else. I should be able to, have the impact and be a leader and all that stuff. In terms of a conscious leaders, I think, the brand of leadership they already understand that leadership is not about just getting status and having influence in any kind of realm. It's that the influence is particular to making the world a better place. It's particular to making sure the highest good comes out of the efforts that are being made. And is that the why we all cling to, or is it more about, like, how do you help somebody identify their own inner why so that they go through that inner journey and not follow the programming?
Yeah, I think if I start, like, Karen, that's an amazing question, because I think as a part of conscious leadership is having the ability to put things in perspective and with context, right? And I think in with the ingredients, it could also be, okay, in this season of life, do those ingredients make sense? And I think that's the other part that people forget to pull through, like, have this conversation in context, right? It's like, I love Chris, like, you talk about doing yoga to again, it's a mitigation part, like, played sports all your life. And like me, I'm trying to navigate back from, I fell on my tailbone during vacation, and I'm still feeling the effects of some 2.5 weeks ago. 20 something year old me would probably been playing basketball the next day after falling on my tailbone. But today, making the adjustments to say, you know what? Guess what, dude? You can't go for a run after something like that today, in today's context, based on how your body is giving, what's it giving back to you, and it's not giving what it used to give, as it pertains to healing. And I think for us, talking about that inner journey, if it's perspective and context, and us being conscious of, okay, what makes sense for us now, right? Like, you could have goals, you could have all these other things, and again, the targets out there for yourself, but having a really contextual conversation with yourself to say, okay, what level of effort am I willing to give to this? Right? Because again, you said, Chris, you talking about practice. I love practicing. And even as coaches, right, we have all the frameworks in the world, right? We got all kind of tools we can give to a client, but does it make sense for them? And why we're giving it to them? Because at the end of the day, the ultimate goal of any type of coaching or development should be, okay, when I'm not around, will you use it? And how will you use it? And so for us, helping people be able to frame what's happening with them in the season that they're in, and not trying to draw from, yep, you got may have got experience, you got stuff that you use, and you may pull that forward if it makes sense. And I think that's a part of the practicing too, is to say, okay, yes, I used to do this, but now what makes sense today? And I think that's the part of it, context, perspective, and doesn't and make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think in that context, I think that is where we get lost, because we remember what we used to do, and we remember. I told somebody once. I said your memory on what you used to do and what actually happened are sometimes two different things. So I said, we all have had that fight where we knew 100% we were correct. Like, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing you can say or nothing you can do to tell me that I'm wrong. And then you go back 10 years later, and someone who actually was listening, like who might have been listening in an argument or watching the argument, said, "Oh no, you're wrong." It's like, what? It's like, no, you're wrong, and this is why you're wrong. And you go back and you say, "Wow, I never thought about that way." Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right. That you have a point. You have some points. It bruises your ego. It bruises that ego, that image that you have of yourself of always of being that righteousness that you felt, and it starts stripping it away. And someone deconstructs the conversation, and you said, well, you said this, and they said that, and they said that, and you said this, and then you insulted them, and then they got insult you back, and the only thing you remember is you insulting you, not how you insulting them first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what I think I think for me, who just who mentors and teaches as well, that is part of the examination or self-examination that you have to go through. That student that knows 100%, they hand in an A paper and they get back a C, and they go like, how dare you, sir? How dare you give me a C? This is the best paper I have ever written, and I got a C on it. He's like, you tell me why I got a C. And I said, sometimes I want to hand it. I want to grab one of the A papers and put their paper and their next to an A paper and say, this is an A paper and this is your paper. You read both of them and you tell me why you got a C and why they got an A. And I said, but I can't. I said, you can't. I said, you can give examples on, I said, that's a little mean, and that's where the meanness come in, but that's not teaching. I said, but that is the idea of the process of the idea of looking back and reflecting and saying, you know what, maybe my best wasn't exactly my best at the time, or maybe somebody was better. That's why they got promotion, I didn't. But how do you do that self-reflecting to say, this is what this person brought to the table, and this is where you need to go, and this is some of the tools that you need to have to go along with it. So you are both professional coaches, so I wanted to have that conversation about how do you start that conversation about this is what this person brought, and this is what you bringing. Let's get you to here, because right now you're angry because it didn't happen for you. But I want to tell you, the person that got it was at the time a better person than you, or had a better opportunity or better journey or better mentality behind it. How do you get that person from who's stuck here, who's angry about something, to that next level of like, I need you to use that anger to fuel whatever happens next. But I need you to transmute that anger to something else. How do you start that conversation with a client?
Yeah, I think if I may, Karen, like,
yeah,
there's this level setting that has to happen, right? And again, this is where you help the person kind of manage and check the emotion, and again, context of the emotion. And I put it this way: so when my students this last semester, I started them all off with this concept of everybody starts with the A. This is my first time meeting you all as students. I have no other context whatsoever outside of your GPA, which I can pull up. But with me, there's no data point that tells me you're not an A student already. Your job to maintain it. But what I'm going to ask you is, I'm going to spell everything out for you of what it's going to take to keep that A. I'm going to go through the rubric. I'm going to go through every single course, every single assignment you have, and I'm going to paint you this picture. And I'm going to spend time answering your questions about lack of understanding or clarifying or anything else like that. And I said, that way, I said, what you're responsible for is, along the way, communicating your lack of understanding along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in coaching, and then when it got to the end of the semester, of course, probably 50% of them maintained their A. But the other half, it was lack of communication, lack of engagement, lack of effort when it came to why they didn't. And I think effort is the biggest part. Like, only you can define your level of effort. And I think for us as human beings, not judging what the level of effort somebody else is putting in, but them being responsible for and defining what they're signing themselves up for.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said, Chris, is putting that, all right, this is an A paper. This is A work. This is in the rubric. And you can answer yourself why you didn't get an A. Based on the rubric, based on what's missing, you grade your own thing. And that was the conversations I used to have with my students. And the best thing that used to come out, and even with clients, they always say, I have you in my head, coach. I have you in my head. My students, as they're looking at their assignment, they used to lead, professor, I know I didn't do what I was supposed to do on this assignment. I know I'm probably going to get a C, but, and I'm like, you stop yourself at the but. That should have been a period. You graded your assignment already based on your understanding of what I said. How you maintain an A, and it's effort and us being able to communicate expectation and managing that expectation and effort along the way. Like, I think that's really what it is. Karen, I know you got something on this.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, when you have a client they've already signed up for change. That's what they want. Initial consultation, let's define what that change looks like. Let's define the length of our relationship and what kind of results you expect to see in that amount of time. And then it's, what are you willing to do? How best can I communicate to you? And it's about asking permission, when you make an observation. So as a coach, you want to help people lead, you want to lead them to their own conclusions about things, so sometimes if they're not getting it, I'll just say, do you mind if I become a consultant for a minute and just tell you what I observe? If they're open to that observation, they usually say yes, but are they really open to that observation, right? But you get that permission from them to make that observation, and it can be challenging to take your subjective observation and have it make sense in their limited view, but that is the challenge of communication and words and things like that. And sometimes they're not ready. They're just not. And you can just say, all right, you're not ready for that yet. Kind of just let it simmer, let it set. I usually trust that they're going to see that at some point. They're going to come to their conclusion when what they're doing isn't netting the results that they wanted. I just kind of trust that in time they'll see it and trust that it usually does, always comes up again, because this is what they're here for. This is the change they're here to create. And yeah, that's my answer around that.
So one of the books I picked up recently was Man's Search for Meaning. It's a great book, and at one of the points that the person makes, or the writer makes, I can't remember the writer's name, but Man's Search for Meaning, and he said a boomerang isn't supposed to return. And the idea where it's like, as you go through your life's path, you're a boomerang. Someone's throwing you. But he said it returns like a boomerang returns, but like it's not supposed to. It's supposed to go out and hit the target and stop. But he said when you miss, it comes back. So do you think that when we talk about inner journeys, that is part of it? That if as you throw it out, as you put somebody on the path, and they go out in life and they go forward, but they miss and they come back. Yes. And the first thing you say is sometimes like, you're not supposed to, as parents say sometimes, you're not supposed to come back. You're not supposed to be back in my house. You're not supposed to be here. and you are you're here. And it's like, I can't understand. Like, I did everything I was supposed to do. I raised you. I gave you money. I put a college education in you. And now you're back. I just don't know. Do you think that focusing on, I think sometimes we focus too much on, using that analogy, you focus on the miss instead of the aim. So we talk about the idea that we threw it and we missed instead of like, I don't think we aimed it right. I don't think we threw it right. I don't think our technique in throwing, our technique. Do you think that is also that you think that's part of it? As we look at as coaching and mentoring, that we look at a student that got an F and I see him again, the next semester, and it's kind of like you're with me for a semester and you're back.
Yeah.
What did I do wrong? How did I fail you? And that focus on, all right, maybe the way in which I am teaching you is wrong. Maybe the way in which I am giving you information is wrong. Maybe the way that the concepts that we're going over and the way I presented the concepts to you were incorrect. Do you think as coaches and mentors, that's part of our job, is to look at someone who might have come back and looking down and saying, what tools did I not give you? And what resources do you need? How can I expand? How are you forcing me to become a better coach? How are you forcing me to become a better teacher? How is that opportunity for me as someone who's supposed to be a professional in this? How can I focus on, and talking about inner journals, how can I focus on me as a coach and mentor and leader to make sure that next time you leave or I throw you into the world, you become better and you don't come back? How do you have that conversation with yourself?
Yeah. I think it's putting me and Karen talk about this, drinking our own Kool-Aid when it comes to those kind of things. And I think one of the ones I love to deploy, particularly because inside of that, and again, it's the checking the judger in all of us, judging the why it happened or when it, like you said, and I loved you said the boomerang's not supposed to come back. it's supposed to hit something, and if it returns, that means you missed.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, for particularly from a student concept, and again with our coaching clients, is I use this acronym Q-tip: quit taking it personal. It's not about me. And now, in not taking it personal, it opens me up and keeps me present to be more curious than confrontational about what happened. And so I've had several return students, and my default button was not to blame it on me. My question, I got curious. Hey, why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
Are you again, and let them say, hey, I wasn't really clear about expectations last semester. And then I'll say, well, and here's where the realness and authenticity of the conversation comes out. So that's interesting. You're the only returning student. So help me understand. What'd you miss? What did I miss? How can we partner together so that you make it out this time? And so it becomes a partnership in what Karen was saying earlier, right? These sessions, this life that you're living, it's not both of ours, it's yours. And so how can I partner with you so that you get the desired outcomes that you're seeking? And for you, I will partner and I will give effort at the level in which we partner together, and there's some ownership and accountability. That's how I show up with, is like, first, Q-tip, quit taking it personal, but
Mm-hmm.
showing up curious and not confrontational about what you're seeing and the why behind it. What you think, Karen?
Well said. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, definitely well said. I relate to the wanting to own all the outcomes, wanting to look only at myself and say, what could I have done better? And I do feel like when I was in academia, there was definitely a lot of that. Like you are the professor. It's your job to figure out what it takes to get these students across the finish line. And yet, as a coach, it's definitely, I'm sure when I was a younger coach, I did say, like, I can guarantee you these results because I will make sure you get what it takes. And um, there's it's great to think you have that level of authority, control, knowledge, wisdom, compassion that's going to get somebody over the finish line they want. But it has to be a partnership. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My friend always tells me that. Um, um, I said, when I said, he said, I can know when you get like, I used to be director for a workforce development organization, um, and 81 participants, 5 office staff, and I said, you know what? I said, I remember my headaches more than I remember the people. I said, the people that did. I said, you remember people that do great. I said, they go out and they go out and do the world. They get jobs. They keep on going. They keep on going back.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I said, I said, it was always the participants that, you get I said, I learned most sometimes from the client, from the people that is kind of like, he did this today and he did that today. And it's kind of like, oh my God. Oh my, and like, oh my God. Like, and go, and my old assistant said, like, and how I saw you do this. Like, he's like, oh my God. And he said, the moment I saw the heads go with the shaved head, I knew something happened. and, um, and I think when we, and I said, and I said, when I did that, I said I was recognizing the I said, first of all, I was recognizing I was physically recognizing the frustration, but more importantly, like you said, I realized that the person that I'm putting all this effort into something, and the person on the other end is obviously not, and that idea of that conversation, like maybe this is not the best place for you, and maybe this is not the best opportunity for you, and maybe this is part of the opportunity, your next journey of like realizing that this is your opportunity and you are not living up to it, and you need to go someplace else. But at the same time, some of the people that came back were better because they had other experiences, and it's like, I didn't realize how I didn't realize what you were saying, but now it makes sense. I didn't realize what other people were saying, but now it makes sense. And now I want to come back, and now I'm a different person, and now it's you see growth, and you and what and so forth and so on. And I think it's interesting that sometimes you see the growth, and sometimes it's the exact same thing over and over again.
Mhm.
But I think when you see growth, that is where we talk about inner journeys today. I think that's where the inner journey happened. They sat back and reflected. They sat back and they said, if I do this and do this, if I get it, like, you're holding me back. And it's like, all right, I'm
Yeah.
holding you back. Move forward. And then also
Yeah.
nowhere, like, no, I was kind of holding myself back. And it's like, yes, that's part of it too. How can we move forward? How can we take that next step? Because the boomerang came back, and it's like oh man, it's like oh man, that it came. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
But we're going to figure out something. There has to be that next step.
I also think, Christopher, the difference is when you're a coach, you can choose your clients. When you're a professor, you are given students. There's a different sense of duty. In the coaching situation, you're like, this is, you can set those expectations and, and communicate how it's going to look, the style you're going to use, and get their buy-in, before they sign on as your client. And in a student situation, it's just like, all right, here are your students. It's your job to get all of these students where they need to go to the next level.
Yeah, I think this is a tip of the iceberg type of conversation that we could definitely go deeper into with some modalities and all these other tools and resources that we have. But I think, again, kind of the things that I got out today is, again, Chris, I'm all over it. And are we going back to our programs in that default setting? But also too, are you worried about how you aimed at the boomerang and are judging if it came back, right? And going through that, just navigating what all that looks like for you. Some really, really amazing nuggets. And so for us, thank y'all for hanging out with us, those who watched live and those who are going to come back, #replay. Make sure that you connect with our panelists, Chris, so he can further drop knowledge bombs on you. And Chris, I don't know if you open new clients, new paying clients, but definitely make sure, and of course, reach out to me and Karen as well. I put our information in there again in the C3 community. Join us, be a part of this community, and jump in and engage as you see fit. And so, Karen, I would turn it over to you to have our last words for today, and also Chris, let people know how they can find you in the future.
And Chris, I know you're seeking out opportunity, so definitely use this opportunity right now to let people know where you want to make the most impact and who for.
For sure.
Go ahead, let them know.
All right. I am seeking opportunities. I am currently a professor right now, but I want to be more. I'm actually a subject matter expert in business management, as well as nonprofit management, social impact, and well as leadership and organizational development. So I am seeking opportunities. I'm giving Karen the permission to put my LinkedIn profile into the replay, as well as what happens next. This is, I told somebody the other day, is like, the inner journey is part of all of us. And I think we are all on an inner journey. And I think for me, my next step is not in academia, keeping the foot in academia, but also going back to practical and useful world information. And I think I want to use that opportunity right now. So please reach out to me if any opportunities in those areas I mentioned. So please as a consultant or as a full-time employee, please reach out.
Yeah, I attest to the fact that Christopher is an impact maker, and he wants to see what he's doing make a real world impact. So if you have an area where he can make an impact, particularly in social impact for an organization, then definitely consider him. He's an excellent leader and just a great person. So I want to thank everybody who's here live, who commented, who watches the replay. The members of the C3 community, we're going to need all to, take a look at the opportunities to step up and do something about our current status and where we really want to be. Like everything, the inner journey we just talked about, like there's things that can be done, right? That's what this community was built for. And there's no time like the present. So look for an invitation to join an information session to brainstorm ideas about how we can do that in a ConCon 2022 format. But also beyond that, I'd like to gather members of the C3 community and really, we talk about operationalism, operationalizing. Wow, that was a trip. Operationalizing. Let's operationalize, spreading consciousness as we see more and more every day that it's desperately needed. And I know that there are people in this community who they want to act, and nobody wants to act alone in this. We need to act together. So look for those opportunities. They're coming up. And thanks for being here. Thank you to Lawrence. Thank you to Christopher. See you next month.
All right, everybody. See y'all later.